right. Call the order of the Estacada Traffic and Public Safety Committee to order. Can I get a roll call, please, Evelyn?
Yes. Commissioner Owens,
Here.
Commissioner Sedgberg, absent today. Commissioner Moriarty,
Here.
Commissioner Dozal,
Here.
Commissioner Parson,
Here virtually.
Commissioner Dobbs,
Here.
and then Counselor McElroy.
Here.
Right.
Excellent. How you doing, Counselor?
Good. How about you guys?
Good. Real good.
Sorry I couldn't be there in person.
That's okay. Glad you're there on the big screen. All right. Do we have any community comments? Evelyn, do we have any? No.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. Could I get a motion to approve the July 2023 minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Motion. You have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Moving on to presentations and reports. Chief, you're up.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me. Just a couple things from the police department. They're at the last city council meeting, I gave a report of some change in staffing that we're going to be seeing here in the city. Our SRO, Deputy Olson, has left the Estacada School District and he's going to be an SRO at a different school. So that started a replacement process for him. So just last week, Deputy Kyler joined the city of Estacada as our SRO. He went to a SRO basic SRO school last week, and then Monday was his first day here in the city, and then school obviously starts next week. So he's ready to go for that. Sat down with him and the city manager this morning. We had a really good discussion. So I'm excited for him. He is new to the sheriff's office, but he's got 17 years experience in law enforcement. So a lot of knowledge that we can pull from him. And I think he's going to do a great job. It was a good conversation with him today. Also, one of our deputies, Deputy Norman, as I mentioned before, it was kind of bittersweet. He's accepted a job with the city of Sandy as a sergeant, so he's being promoted, but he's also leaving the sheriff's office. So congratulations to him, but we'll be seeking out his replacement shortly. I'm working with the sheriff's office due to staffing, right, to see where we can move a deputy from the county patrol into the city of Estacada. But regardless, if a deputy is here in the city of Estacada, the calls are responded to and answered by the county deputies that are working in the East County. So regardless if there's a city deputy here, there is still a response to those calls for service. We're still on track to add an FTE or another deputy this spring. Which will increase the patrol staffing. And then
What's FTE?
an FTE is just a full-time employer or a position. So a new deputy in addition to what we already have. And then it's my understanding that we're going to go ahead and move forward to preparing to add the next one, which just gets us closer to that 24-hour coverage that we're looking for.
To clarify, got the one coming on and you're already starting to work on the next one?
Once the way that our agreement is with the city and the sheriff's office, the contract is when you request a new position, you start paying for the training for that position. So that's been happening already. And we should realize that new position probably we're anticipating March.
Yeah.
And then once we have that new position, we'll probably start paying for the next one to realize that the following year. And then one thing on the school, I've worked with the Estacada School District and the superintendent to put together some they're essentially, they're called mass casualty kits that we can have at each school in the district. And I thought you might be interested in that. The school district is paying for those. One of the deputies that on our medical team is putting all that together, which was actually at a fairly significant cost savings because we bought all the supplies and built our own kits instead of buying this, off the shelf type thing. And one of those will go to each school and the district office, and then the SRO will have one as well. So just a good safety thing for our schools, and appreciate that cooperation with the school district to make that happen. And then some of our deputies that teach emergency first aid, we're going to offer some classes to the school district, to the staff and teachers and whatnot, in case they ever need to use those items, or at school or any time in their life. Really, it's just good knowledge to have, good medical knowledge.
Students, is there like a cadet program or anything like that? Did we talk about this?
Yeah, we do. We have a cadet program with the sheriff's office that if youth between 15 and 21 are eligible to apply for that. We do have some kids that are in the Estacade area that are a part of our program. Is that what you're referring to?
Generally, yeah. I mean, but then getting the kids involved in that training that you were talking about sounds really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that we could take a look at as some options. Our volunteers that are cadets, they actually go through some first aid training in their cadet academy. So they've gone through that experience and have that training, and that's definitely something we could offer to those that are interested. The last thing I want to touch on was I saw that you guys had it later, so I won't steal any thunder, but we're proud to be able to participate in the National Night Out here in Estacada, and I think you guys did a great job of improving on what we had last year. I know that we had some representatives. Myself was there. The sheriff was here, and some search and rescue volunteers, and a couple of our deputies were able to be here. So we're glad to be able to participate in that.
Yeah. It's nice seeing all the toys out here in
Yeah.
the parking lot.
Yeah, that was maybe we'll try to get a few more next year, but yeah, that was pretty good. That night's tough because of the demand all around the county,
I
but
can imagine.
yeah, there's a couple other, like I would have liked to have seen one of our canines come out, but maybe we can do that next year.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you for attending.
Yeah, you
That was
bet.
good.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Good.
It's a good time. All right. Is that all you have, Chief?
Yeah, that's it for the report, but I
Okay.
am happy to take any questions if
Does anyone
anybody
have
has any.
questions for the chief?
I'd like to ask.
I got a quick one, Jim.
Go ahead, Counselor.
I'd be interested to know what the participation levels are in the training that you guys offer to the schools, so that we know how prepared we are. Is that something you can share with us afterwards, that how many people took advantage of the training that was offered?
Yeah, absolutely. I had spoken with the SROs yesterday and asked them to make that contact with the superintendent, and I need to follow up with him. So when we get that scheduled, I don't know what it looks like just yet of how many we're going to offer that to, or if we're going to do that on an ongoing basis. But
Yeah.
I can definitely let you know percentage wise.
It would, not so much percentage wise, it'd just be nice to know, Chief, if they at least have, if they have dedicated a few people that are committed to the training at each location, so that it doesn't matter if we get 10 participants at one school and none at another, then it's not going to help out as much if there were something to happen there. Just knowing that there's a few people at each school that participated that will be able to help prepare for it if it ever did happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor.
Would you?
Go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, I have just one question. I know the homeless situation has been talked to death through several committees and through city council and things. So I'm not trying to dive into the heart of that. I just have a simple question, because I'm curious to know the answer to this with the school starting up. How often Chief, do you have issues with calls pertaining to homeless people hanging around the schools to where the SROs have to get involved, like with the Ranger Woods, things like that? Is that an issue? Is that something that are they leaving drug paraphernalia around? Is it just non-existent, or is there some calls from service for that sometimes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not aware of any direct calls for service related to that. I know that our previous SRO had told me he'd made some contacts, like you mentioned, in Ranger Woods and other areas around there, but it wasn't necessarily a direct call for some sort of health or safety circumstances related to the school.
Okay. And do the SROs, do they patrol that area as well? Because that would be a place I would think the homeless would.
Yeah, the SROs
Tend to be.
and our deputies here in
So the
town.
new one knows about that issue and where that is, and
Yes,
all that, okay.
yeah, the previous SRO, they worked together yesterday, and I know that was one location that
showed
they
him
went to.
everything. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's actually wasn't my original question, but it leads to this, and that is, the walking routes and bicycle routes to school, like in the morning. Are there, and I'm not asking specifically, but are there, areas or routes where officers might either not probably hang out, but cruise around, just because that's where a lot of not pediatric, but school age kids traffic for a very specific amount of time,
Mhm.
like start the day there or what have you. Is there anything like that or any?
Yeah, it's that seems reasonable. And what my direction to the SRO is in the morning when schools are beginning, that he pay particular attention to school zones and traffic enforcement. But that is definitely something that we could add in there. I mean, it's just really a matter of rotating around and addressing different areas that might be issues. I'm not aware of any problems that we've had with that, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with those extra patrols to make sure that there aren't any problems.
All right. The other thing I wanted to mention, back to those mass casualty kits, what the idea was when I was asking about the kids is basically recruiting new cadets.
Mhm.
Expose some kid to something like that, they think it's cool, and next thing you know, one thing leads to another. And I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but just throwing that idea out there as a potential recruiting event for new cadets.
Yeah, honestly, I love the idea because we're always looking for youth that are interested in learning about law enforcement, which is really what that program is about, and would love to offer that opportunity to them.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your,
Yeah, you bet.
Report.
Thank you.
Right.
It's good to see all of you.
Thank you.
good to see you. Heal fast.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. On the next reports, moving on to the natural hazard mitigation plan update.
Hi,
Hi, Elena.
sorry I couldn't be there in person today, but you get me via Zoom. So this is a very large document. I'm going to start by kind of introducing a little about why we're doing this. So the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan, the section I included in your packet, is Estacadas Addendum. This is a multi-jurisdictional plan that covers all of Clackamas County, and each of the cities and some of the special districts like fire districts will do their own addendums to the plan. Our addendum very specifically focuses on Estacada and Estacada hazards, and then what we plan to do to kind of mitigate some of the potential damage that can come from some of these natural hazards. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go over some of the highlights. And then in the end, I'd like you guys to think about, because Brandy had served on the team for helping develop this and update this. And since Brandy is no longer here, you guys might think about if there's somebody else on the team who would like to take her place.
Already got it covered.
Okay, fantastic.
Volunteer. Perfect.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you, John.
Live to serve.
Okay, so we're going to jump ahead because a lot of this is very kind of routine. The whole first part just covers a lot of the why we're doing this and who's involved, etc. Here we go to the hazard analysis. And the last time we did this was about 4 years ago. And it has changed significantly since then. I mean, as to be expected, because of the wildfires, because of the Riverside fire and then the MacIver fire, we definitely raised up. We expect that our most dangerous threat is going to be wildfire in the community. Now, some of these things, the probability is less. Like when we're looking at Cascadia earthquake, we don't expect that to happen necessarily anytime soon, but if it did happen, we're especially vulnerable, and it's going to impact a lot of our systems. It'll impact the water, it'll impact the wastewater, it'll impact the streets, and so we see that some things that have a lesser probability but a higher threat end up ranked a little higher. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at this. If you feel like you feel that this is the right ranking for the hazards? Do you feel like that we see that the highest hazard is going to be wildfire and that we're maybe not so concerned about volcano?
What do you guys think? Are you just looking for the hazard rank, Elena, or each of the categories: threat, probability, vulnerability, history?
Yeah, if you guys see anything that jumps out at you, I mean, the history is based on our historical facts in the area. However, like the vulnerability and probability, a lot of this is kind of, not necessarily based in, it's a lot of guesswork, right? You're guessing, okay, the probability of a volcano eruption impacting us is really low.
When you say history, it would be helpful if we knew exactly how far back you're talking with that history. Is this is this in the last 10 years, last 50 years, last 100 years?
I want to say that because a lot of these numbers came from Clackamas County, and then we adjusted it based on what we felt like our vulnerability and probability was. But I want to say that they looked back like 50 years. But
Okay.
don't quote me. I'd have to go back and look at the paperwork that when we started this like months ago.
The earthquake data, it's like every 500 years or something like that. And so I think we're going to hit the average gap between big events in 100 years or something like that. So, the vulnerability, of course, the threat, of course, but the how do you plan for that? And how do you mitigate that? You can't mitigate soil because it's existing. You can't, I mean, the retrofitting, the gym and the fire station. I think that's done already. And so, versus extreme heat, winter storm, in the last, 3 or 4 years, we've had 2 of each, something like that. So, and I guess that the history history ranking bears that out. Winter storm is 7, extreme heat is 6. So moving those up, because I don't know from an earthquake standpoint, what else do you, I don't know what, my wife claims that bridge right there is going down as soon as we have a big one, but I don't know if that one's been retrofit or not. It hasn't.
I'm not sure.
And then, but from an escape standpoint, I mean, if you lose that, you're
right.
So
yeah. So what the city can do as far as mitigation is one, we will do seismic analysis for the city buildings and then our infrastructure. Like right now, we're planning an update to the water master plan. And as part of this update to the water master plan, they're doing a seismic evaluation. And that will come back with a series of recommendations. Those recommendations are expensive oftentimes. And so you have to look at where can we find the money to do that work. And I know that the school and the other, the fire district, they're looking at their facilities too and doing these seismic evaluations to see if there's things that they can do for their facilities. But yeah, a lot of it is like the soil in the area. We can't do anything about it. And so we know if there's an earthquake, there's just going to be a certain amount of like soil liquefaction that's going to impact the pipes in the ground. And that's really hard for us to mitigate that kind of thing. Like we can mitigate the water storage tank and create that, more seismically sound, but not necessarily like the pipes in the ground. I think Mike has a question.
Yeah, just a quick question, Elena. It looks like these are all the main causes of events, but kind of a common theme between several of these with the windstorm, the winter storm, and things like that is power outages.
Mhm.
Would that not be listed on something like this, just being prepared for if people are without power for 2 weeks and their well and other items that are generated, they don't have a clean water source, stuff like that, being prepared for extended periods of time without power, like we had during the fires, then followed not long after by the ice storm. I remember being without power. I mean, I installed a generator, but a lot of people didn't do that, just being without power for very long periods of time, and how to be better prepared for that to help people that are in bad situations.
Yeah, when we get down a little further to when we talk about the critical and essential facilities, there is direct and indirect. So some of these we expect, like earthquake, is going to have direct damage, and some of them is more indirect. And the indirect part of that is looking at the, we're going to lose power. So like when we have the windstorm, we look at this and it says indirect. We're not expecting something to fall on the, City Hall, but we are expecting that a windstorm could knock down power to City Hall. It's going to have an indirect impact on our facilities.
Is that numbered order that you have there supposed to be based on severity, or is it the likelihood or the need of it, the hazard tiers, top tier, middle tier? Because it seems like the windstorm is more likely to happen, and is going to happen more often than some of the items that are further up, like drought, perhaps, or extreme heat, maybe, would be right up there with those. Is there a reason why that's at the bottom tier?
So they have, this was a spreadsheet the county gave us, and we updated the numbers as far as what we felt the vulnerability and the threat and the probability. And then they have some calculation in here that determined what the score would be.
Gotcha.
Some of these are weighted higher than others. I'm not sure of the math that went into it. However, so like the windstorm, the probability is 7. It is up to the same as the winter storm and extreme heat. We expect to have windstorms and winter storms and extreme heats to happen regularly. That should probably be a year, we're expecting that to be like a yearly occurrence. However, because we've done a lot of work like trimming trees and pulling things back, we don't expect to see as much of a damage with a windstorm as we do, say, a winter storm, where, we have a very hilly terrain. If we get an ice storm, it's going to potentially be very difficult for us.
Understood. Thank you, Elena.
No problem. Okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
another question about, it started out with reading the section about drought, but it has to do with where we get our water. I actually kayaked past it for the first time ever, and I didn't know we had 2 intakes. But with the probability of 8, and I also read, I think in the report where it said there's new capacity coming online shortly, but that's going to be taken up with the new construction and new residents that are going on right now. So already time to start looking at new stuff. I'm like, circling back around, if we've got 1 or 2 spots where we're getting our water, how are those protected? And from perhaps criminal activity, or falling timbers or whatever. If it's such a high probability and there's only 1 or 2 spots, what have we done? And I don't know, but I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about it here, but what have we done to protect those and make them safer, regarding electricity, can they run without electricity, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we've done some tree trimming, so we have less likelihood of things falling on our plants now. So the water and the wastewater plant. So we've done some mitigation there. That also helps clear some space around the plants if of wildfire would to come in. So there's less burnable materials. There's a term for it. It's poof, up my head. But there are things that the water is part of the Clackamas River watershed, and it is part of the 3-basin rule. And so there are state protections for the watershed from things like chemical spills and pesticides. There's a lot of things that are state regulations that would help protect our water supply. Now, protecting our water facility, we have a generator, and we actually applied for a grant because the generator currently can only power half of the plant. And so we applied for a grant to power the other half of the plant, and we put it in the budget this year to do that work. Regardless if we get the grant or not. I mean, if we get the grant, we could save the money and use it for something else, but to power half of our water plant in the winter, it's not an issue right now. So in the winter, if we lose power and we can only power half the plant based on our generator, that's not a problem because we're not using that much water. In the summer, it's a problem. And so with the public safety power shutoffs, that's where we're going to see the biggest concern. We're the most worried about our water plant being able to keep up, is because generally those are happening in the heat of the summer where we're also using a whole lot of water. So we have projects that are underway to make sure that we have power for the entire water plant, but right this second we don't.
What about vandalism? That same kayak trip, there was someone underneath the bridge banging away on metal pipes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know that there's some sensors, and the SCADA equipment sends Chris, our plant operator, notifications if we see that there's an impact on the draw. But the plant, like the pumps and the plant itself, are all fenced completely, and it's got like a gate, and I think there's barbed wire on it. So it's not easy for people just to get down and access it. Now, where the pipe goes into the river, somebody might be able to access it. You'd have to try, it's because if you kayaked past it, it's not like right in the flow of traffic necessarily. A lot of people don't head that far, especially with a lot of the locations upriver being closed still after the fire. But yeah, that is a possibility. And I don't think there's a whole lot we could do we're updating the water system plan, and we'll see if something comes up in that system plan that says we need to do X, Y, and Z to protect our water intakes. But I don't know, since the pipe is in the middle of the river has public access, if there's what we could do to prevent people from jumping into the river and banging on the pipes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Casey.
Underneath landslide debris flow, you've got 7 on the history, which is second only underneath wildfires. And also on that landslide debris flow on the probability, you have it at 9, which is also second underneath wildfires. So though that to me is underneath wildfire is going to be your second leading high incident issue on this list. I'm fairly new to the town. So my question to this, since I'm also on this hazardous mitigation committee with you, but I don't think I asked this question when I was on that committee. From my own knowledge, these landslides, have they blocked the evacuation routes out of town before? Is that an issue, or these landslide debris flows, this is an inner town issue to where like that hill behind the post office? I mean, are you talking about something like that that's not affecting people getting out? Or because you have 7 we've had 7 of them. So how bad is that affecting our evacuation issues?
So here's the landslide hazard map. It is on page 29 in your packet.
Cool.
And this shows where they've happened. They're not necessarily happening in town. And I think the why it's so high is after the fires, there's an increased likelihood for landslides and debris flow when you have those high fire impacts that we saw upriver, right, from the Riverside fire. And since that would flow downstream potentially, our biggest concern is that impacting our water supply. We're not necessarily concerned about seeing the huge debris flow where it's going to take out the bridge, but we're concerned about seeing the debris flow where it would clog the intake for the water supply or increase the amount of silt and dirt and things that are in our water supply, which could, be an issue for us processing it in the plant. It might take extra filters or might require extra work for us too. That's why while it has higher probability up here, the vulnerability and the threat aren't super high because we're not expecting to see it taking out bridges or taking out roads, but we might see it impacting the water supply.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions before I move on?
I think we're good, Elena. Go ahead. Thank you.
I don't know how much you want to get into this because I was going to skip all the way till the bottom when we talk about what we're planning on doing for projects. So if there's any of these specific, I know a lot of these maps, like the landslide hazard map we just looked at, these are being updated by the state. So these maps may change and it might change some of our data. So I don't want to say like, this is for sure what it's going to be when we publish it. I know that the expected, I had a meeting today with the Clackamas County emergency managers, and they said they expect to get the data back from the state for a lot of these maps in October. So we'll probably go through when that data comes in and update a lot of these maps, and then a lot of the supporting activity or the supporting documents here that talk about how that's going to impact the city. So, but I will skip down here till we go to our action items, because these are what we are going to do to help mitigate the potential hazards that we see as being threats to the city. So the first one is being to create an evacuation plan. And we're looking at hoping this evacuation plan will also lead to us potentially amending some of our code to ensure that future developments can be easily evacuated. A lot of these developments are in the process of being built. So you have a lot of roads that lead nowhere right now. And if you're going to evacuate in an emergency situation, that can be very confusing to new residents. The Clackamas County Community Wildfire Protection Plan is in the process of being updated right now. And generally speaking, we will implement action items that are identified in that plan. This is something that the resource book here is something that came out of our discussions. And I know that the fire district and the school district have both been like, I don't know who to call, like when the power goes out and now I need gas in the middle of the night, and who do I call? So creating this kind of resource book for not only emergency management people. So who is the emergency management contact for the school district? Who's the contact for the fire district? Who's the contact for the city? But also things, like important resources, like the, where can we find water? Where can we find gasoline? Those kind of things. This vulnerable population registry. This is a self-registry, so people are able to register themselves if they need additional needs or assistance in the case of emergency. So I know that we have talked about in the past that when we had to evacuate, we needed some help getting people out of 300 Main and out of the Whispering Pines. homes. I think the school district helped bus some people out of Whispering Pines because they may not be able to drive themselves. So creating this kind of registry where we know these people need extra assistance and we can give that to the emergency management authorities, either the fire or the police, to help them assist those people as they need it. And along with that, I know we experienced this during the Riverside fires, is that a lot of people weren't willing to leave their horses and livestock, and they needed some extra help getting them out. So creating a list and registry of people willing to assist with evacuating livestock. And here we are, the seismic evaluations and upgrades. I know the school district already has it planned, and they have received some funding for the high school gym and the River Mill Elementary School. And then we have here a reporting system for storm damage. So residents, whether this is an app or a form on the website, so residents can report downed limbs, power lines, etc. And then there's quite a few items on here that are educational. So things like responsible driving practices and property preparation for ice storms. If we jump down here, there's going to be things like drought planning, which is another educational opportunity. So creating a plan to manage and address drought. There's a few things in here that are educational opportunities, and those are low lifts. Those are things that don't cost a lot of money and don't take a lot of time, but enable our residents to help themselves. Purchasing salting equipment for the roads. We've seen more ice storms. It seems to be like a every year occurrence instead of every 5 years. And so during the ice storms, having some salting equipment for especially some of our hillier streets would be helpful. Some of our fuel storage tanks right now, we don't really have any place in the city that does not require electricity to be able to get gas or diesel, which makes it a little difficult for refilling if we had a long power outage for refilling the tanks that run our generators. And then here we have the vegetation management, which impacts quite a few different storms, like the winter storms, the wind storms, the fire, being able to go in and manage vegetation around the critical infrastructure to reduce the impacts of these hazards. The school district is installing some commercial air conditioning and scrubbers in order to serve as a cooling center during extreme weather events, and that should also help during any wildfire smoke events if somebody needed a place where they could go and get out of the smoke. We're also encouraging facilities to become warming facilities, cooling shelters, and Red Cross shelter sites. We're updating our stormwater master plan, and the lists of the projects on that stormwater master plan often help with preventing flooding. So like, I know if you've been to the Wade Creek Park expansion, it looks like a great little park and there's a little stream, but really that is also a flood prevention project. That taking that, dredging out that pond, restoring it to the original stream habitat allows us to have more flow during high water events and prevent flooding. Because I know a lot of you are new, but right after we built the library, it flooded the library. So, you know, that was a big project that was on the stormwater master plan. It also helped prevent, you know, these kind of hazard damage from flood events. And then the last two are really standard things, you know, integrating goals and actions into our regulatory documents. So, you know, if we're updating the emergency or the evacuation plan, making sure that things that go into the evacuation plan make it into the city code so that we're not building new subdivisions that make it hard for people to evacuate. And then we had taken some of the high priority action ones and kind of broke it down on what we're going to do. And I don't need to go over all of those, but if you guys have any thoughts on any of these action items, if you feel like anything is missing, or if you feel like any of these should be expanded upon, you let me know.
Is it possible, Elena, when these come to fruition, whether it be the first section you have here with the table of contents and the mitigation and hazard analysis, that we could put something on our traffic and public safety Facebook page?
Oh, yeah.
If we could do that so that information could be out there on the city website.
Yeah, so this, once it is, what the process for this to get approved is right now, this draft was sent to the Clackamas County. They're reviewing the draft. They'll send it back to us. We'll make updates to it. And once they've approved it as part of their addendum for theirs, we'll take it to city council and city council will approve it. And then after city council approves it, then we can post it on the website and put it on your guys's Facebook page. And
Excellent. Thank you.
no problem.
Good. Carrie has a question.
Elena, hi. Carrie here. All right. Do you know if the school district has a backup generator for any of the school district for the classrooms or the buildings? Do you know?
I believe they do have some generators because we discussed fuel storage for the generators, but I don't know if they have them at every school.
I was wondering also to follow up on that question of where facilities would be during an emergency where something for injured people could go. And if the town, if there was a point where we had to have medical supplies and stuff, also maybe a part of the school could be used for that if they had a backup generator.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that the school is doing, that's part of why they're doing their work for the scrubbing and cleaning for air conditioning and to prevent to clear out the smoke, is in order to serve as that kind of, shelter site facility for in case of an emergency.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Good question. Anyone else have anything for Elena?
Just one final comment. I mean, it seems like every single meeting I say, I can't believe how much information exists already. There's so much work that's been done on so many different topics. And I haven't fully explored the city page. I don't think I have, but I'm wondering, is there like an index or a tab you can go to that lists out all of the data and the reports alphabetically or however it would be sorted?
So there's a page on our website that has key documents, but it is not easily sorted, and we're actually in the process of updating the website because right now this is one of our issues with our current web provider. So hold on. If you let me turn on screen share again and I'll show you how to get here. I don't think it's particularly easy to access right now.
Thank you for showing us.
Yeah. So if you're on the homepage of the city, you can go to government, scroll down to key documents. And this brings you all the documents in the city. And this includes everything from agendas and packets. But if you click on things like plans and reports, that'll weed out a lot of things like agendas and minutes. And so you'll get things like the active transportation plan, the comp plan, the water quality report. These are probably things that are going to be a little more insightful if you're looking for that kind of, depth of information for the city.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Good. Really good. Excellent. Does anyone else have anything for Elena? No? That's awesome, Elena. I had no idea until I read it about 3 or 4 days ago when we got it from Evelyn. That's a lot of good work you guys are doing, and definitely keep that up. Transportation is something we can talk about next time. Yeah. I know it's on there, but that's really good with all the assets, the facilities, the infrastructure, populations. It's quite a document, and that's just ours, right? That's not the whole thing. That's
That
just
is-
Estacadas, right?
Yeah, that's just Estacadas addendum.
Wow.
So when we get the whole county plan, it's going to be hundreds of pages because it'll have all the cities in the county and yeah.
Wow. Well, excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's see. Okay, moving on to, if there wasn't anything else on the hazardous, no? Okay, moving on to committee business, applicants for the vacancy. All right, have Christina Adams and Abraham Smith. Yes and yes. Who wants to go first and say hello? Abraham, go ahead.
Hi there. My name's Abraham Smith. I'm a resident. I guess I don't actually live in city limits. I live on Eagle Creek right outside of the city limits, but I've been here almost 10 years now. I grew up in Sandy, moved around. Once we had children, decided this is the place we wanted to be to raise our kids. And basically I'm just invested in the community. I was looking for some place that I could jump in and kind of get my feet wet. And this was the first spot that opened up, and here I am.
Awesome. Thank you for coming. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Smith? Anyone? No?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that was easy. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate you submitting all that good information. Okay. Christina Adams.
Hi there.
Hello.
Can you hear me? My name is Christina Adams. I've been in the community. I think we've been here about 9 years. We lived off Redland, had some property, and then when the kids grew up, we decided that property was not our thing. So we moved into town. I do have family ties here. My grandfather, my uncles were all raised here. I was raised in Molalla, Woodburn, and yeah, finally ventured out this way. But I do love the community. I'm a business owner now. I've had my business for a year and some months, and just really feel like I need to be more involved in the community. I want to be more involved in the community. And so, you know, this was the first position that opened up. So
Yes.
thought I'd jump in.
Definitely. And thank you for being there for National Night Out also.
Yeah, that was a lot of
Wanted to
fun.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was
So,
good. Anyone have any questions for Christina? No? Okay.
all
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
All right. So this is what I suggest, and it's up to the committee. But we have 5 here, and I have to recuse myself because I've dealt with Christine Adams in regards to the American Legion. So do you want to wait until Heath comes back so we have 5 people voting instead of 4? What do you think, Mitch?
Yeah, I'm up for whatever you want to do as far as voting.
Okay. So thank you this evening. Well, when we have, what is it, September 26th, we will let you know. And thank you for being involved in Estacada. And either one of you don't get on, please keep putting in for everything and being involved. You know, we're grandparents here, right?
Yeah.
So. So, excellent. Well, thank you for showing up. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Abraham. Appreciate it. All right. Recap of National Night Out event. Who wants to start first? Terry, you want to start first?
Sure, I want to say something. Hey, that was pretty cool. love the sheriff's department stuff. That was cool. The toys they had, you know, what I mean, that's the
That's pretty awesome.
the off-road vehicle was pretty cool. So, yeah, that's just appreciate the law enforcement. A lot of good stuff. I did talk to Gary of NAMI and Clackamas County, and it's a resource center for folks that need help. And boy, he downloaded a lot of stuff, a lot of information. And I had a brochure on it too. I didn't bring it, but he also gave me a card, because sometimes talking to people that might be passing through town, you know, and need some help, this is the place that they can go. And it's really a good organization. They have a 24-hour availability. And for somebody that really might need some help quickly. And he explained the system to me in that you can communicate with them through a phone to call. And if for someone is perhaps having a problem with drugs or feeling depressed, hurting and need help and want help, this facility, a call ahead, they will prepare for that person. If they're agreeable to be transported, that's good. He did say that they have picked people up before to help them if it was a emergency situation and they needed help, without calling law enforcement or something like that. They're in a desperate need. And I thought, wow, that is really awesome. They're in Milwaukee, they're on 82nd Drive. And after he was done explaining a lot of incidences of being able to help people. Now, once again, these are people that might be having a bad reaction to drugs. And if they're calm and say, hey, I need help, there is a place to call. It's NAMI, and it's I was I'm very impressed, because I've talked to people before in a lot of times that haven't landed somewhere and they want help legitimately. And the facility there offers that. And they offer counseling, they offer medical. And boy, I tell you, I thought it was a great resource to let people know that there is a place for somebody to go. And if they're in that point where they say, I need some help. And so he had a tent set up there with a lot of information. Once again, it's NAMI, N-A-M-I, Clackamas. And there are a lot of these facilities around, but it sure answers something here for town as far as someone being able to be transported or helped. And I thought, wow, bingo, awesome. Good thing. Talked to a lot of the people in the booths, and it was pretty cool. I can see this thing getting bigger.
Definitely.
There was a good start. I mean, it really was. And as Chief Mendoza said, I think he wants to bring more toys.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, which is cool. Love law enforcement. That's it.
Excellent. All right.
Did we quantify anything at all, like public attendance or anything like that?
That's a good point. I know, well, at least staff put down on the one of the reports they had for their April 14th meeting that they took out feedback from the general public. So for Main Street. So I'd like to see that possibly in the future, because I know Melanie and Elena were there. So it'd be great to hear what everybody thinks about what was going on Main Street, like we did on the What's Up Estacada. And he was there from NAMI. I was able to get a lot of his information in his cards and hand it out to the veteran community here in town. Definitely a good resource. But no, I haven't heard anything about that.
That would be, of course, be interesting.
Absolutely.
Just, for a goal for next time.
Well, you went around a lot. I know,
Well, no,
I hit about
actually,
every booth.
I
but-
had that was my comment, because the previous meeting I'd been, I volunteered to start working on some ordinances regarding that whole homeless issue.
Right.
And then, the big meeting happened and things kind of went sideways. And so I actually went to this event with a mission. I wanted to talk to people and get their opinions, because I think it's top of mind for most everyone, the homelessness issue and safety and all that kind of stuff. But it clearly, when you read the minutes of the city council meeting, you don't get the depth of emotion and that was there if you were watching it. And so what I did is I broke up the issue regarding ordinances specifically into 4 categories: public health, public safety, public access, and public decency. And I nothing about homelessness at all, just those 4 topics. And then I just went table to table, and I wouldn't go boom, boom, boom right down the line. I would go back and forth and talked to all sorts of different people, all ages, all backgrounds, and set the table. I mean, I told them that it seems to have been a very contentious issue. I thought I'd just back up a little bit. And on these 4 topics, is there one particular ordinance you would like to see? And inversely, is there one particular ordinance you would not want to see? And, I wasn't trying to be scientific. I wasn't trying to keep accurate records. I just wanted to have a conversation with people, and across the board. I mean, some people were a little bit reticent at first to start talking, but I just wanted some information. And again, this isn't science, but I am here to tell you, every single person I talked to, no matter how they fell on the issue, some are certainly more carrot than stick, and others are definitely more stick than carrot, but every single one of them were empathetic towards the homeless, and every single one of them wanted to see that they got help. Every single one across the board. And then of course you got into the specifics, and then off you go into the weeds, because it could be anywhere. But it was really heartening, because there is a consensus or a place to start, and starting with something little instead of trying to do a big umbrella ordinance that's covering all sorts of stuff. Why don't you start like here? I actually asked a question, and I'll word it carefully, but is there an ordinance if someone's walking down Broadway and decides that they need to relieve themselves and does it right there on the sidewalk? Is there an ordinance against that? And no one knew. You'd think there would be, but maybe there's not. That sort of real basic stuff, just to get everyone talking about things. But I was really optimistic after talking to everybody, because of course it's top of mind, because we got Portland right there. We read about it in the news every day. It's some awful headline after another. So I think there's a way to go, slowly but surely, mind you. So I had a great time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing that. All right. Casey, what about you?
I enjoyed my time there. I was a little bit limited due to a family issue I had there, but
Right.
but this was my first one to attend. I wasn't really didn't know what to expect, but I was impressed. I've been to several of them in another state where I came from, and honestly saw a little bit more excitement, participation with this one than where I came from. So I was excited about that. I like the fact that this town really, really supports their police, fire, and emergency technicians, because as you know, like John just said, in certain cities around here, that's not the case.
Right.
And it's very, I know I made the right decision moving here. That was one of the things I checked into before I moved here.
Mhm.
But it's nice to see it, and see Clackamas County sheriffs and our own fire department come out, and people just kind of love on them and tell them how much they appreciate their services. So, yeah, so it was a good time. I had a good time.
Definitely.
Nice to see. Very
Yeah.
encouraging.
Thank you for everyone's participation. It was definitely good. I'd like to turn off the heat next year. I know it's August 1st, but I mean, we were like, Carrie, hurry up and get the easy up here. Trying to hide and
Turn the thermostat down.
but you know, with the community center and all the groups that were there, it was impressive with the amount of people that reached out to the city that wanted to be part of it. And I think I made it to almost everyone's table, but I was, you know, down checking out, talking to the sheriff and Chief Mendoza down there. And those were pretty cool toys down there. Definitely. It's nice to see the Clackamas County does have some good resources to help us out in a pinch, whether it be something on the river or SWAT action or other things. So
There, one other thing,
Go ahead.
there was another lady that had a booth there. She tests the water and does eco testing and stuff along the rivers and stuff. Fascinating stuff on her determinations of stuff. And I thought that was really cool too, because the fact that a lot of the streams and everything and backwater stuff is being tested constantly. And she just was a wealth of information and stuff. I just really appreciated her booth and stuff and talking to all the kids and also but it was really informative. And then the Boy Scouts were there and Cub Scouts stuff there. That was cool too. You know, I was a Boy Scout, so you know, you grow up and you know, you go out in the woods and have to stay out there for a couple of nights, and it rains, and you never want to sleep on a slope because the water always comes down the hill into your sleeping bag. So, you know, you learn a couple of things, you know, when you're a kid. But anyway, just appreciated everybody there.
excellent. Excellent. All right. Okay, moving on to the audible crossing request to ODOT at Broadway and 224.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Taylor.
Here. I can relay the update that we have currently from Melanie, and I will also just let you know that we will have an updated update once Elena hears back from the engineers that are working on the project. There will be a shorter timeline ultimately for the project because the council decided not to underground the power. So the engineers will come back with a bunch of updated materials, including an updated timeline. But I will just read the brief update, general update from Melanie to you now, and you're free to ask me questions. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to answer them, but here it is. So the Main Street project, which is downtown from Jeremy Lovelace to the bottom of the hill at 3rd. We wanted to underground the power like we did on Broadway, but the lines on Main are much more significant than the ones on Broadway. They are feeder lines that provide power to the northern end of town rather than just to the local properties. So the Urban Renewal Board decided to leave the power above ground. The cost and the time frame for construction were greatly increased if the power was going to be put underground. And the majority decided that it wouldn't be that beneficial for only 2 blocks. So the power would have gone back overhead at the bottom of the Main Street hill anyway. So it would be a very short distance for a really large cost and a lot of extra time. So this means that we can do the projects in a shorter time frame. So we're hoping to have it done by Memorial Day next year. ... We'll see how it actually goes. But it's going to be a great project. Improving the street and sidewalks, adding street trees and pedestrian level lights, improving the pedestrian crossings, making 4th and Main a 4-way stop. So
Excellent.
That is the update from Melanie. And if you have questions, feel free to ask them. If I can't answer them, I can just relay them to Melanie or someone who can, and we can get that information back out to you.
I have a question, Taylor.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get something back from PG&E without the vault design for Main Street? And it won't be October, November 2024. You said Memorial Day
Right, so
ish.
what Elena is getting back from, I think Kennedy Jenks is the engineering firm.
Okay.
that's running, that's coordinating managing the project. So what she's gonna get, I think next week, I think she said next week, she will get an updated timeline and project scope. So, the scope establishes, they basically have to modify the scope that they've agreed upon in order to agree upon what work is going to get done and by when. So she should have that updated information by next week.
Okay, excellent. Anyone have any questions for Taylor about Main Street?
I have a question. I think it might have been addressed earlier in another meeting. When the original project came to fruition with the drawings of the bump outs and everything, a lot of additional thing with tile and a circle and all that stuff, there was a reduction in cost. And I think it was 2.4 million at that time for that complete bonus package with all the bells and whistles. After adjustment of the drawings and public input, it was reduced, I believe, to 1.8. I guess my question is, in the reduction of the cost, it seemed like we had at that time not considered vaults, correct? There was no information on the additional cost for vaults, 2 vaults of underground. Is that right?
I don't know. That's a good
Okay.
question.
That's cool. And so then the reduction of cost, all of a sudden, in the time delay of starting the project, I don't understand how all of a sudden there was a switch that, okay, now it's going to be a whole bunch more money.
Mhm.
And it seems like I'm in construction. When somebody bids something, I understand material costs are hard to nail down. That's just the way it is. Stuff happens with materials. But there was a reduction in cost, and then we ended up having to pay more money. And now we've reduced the vaults. It's just kind of the question floating in the air is, are we still paying more money for less stuff?
Right.
I don't understand that one. Or maybe there's a really good answer. I just a question to hang on there.
Yeah, okay. I'll see if I can get a cost breakdown of, from that original
Yeah.
project cost, what all was included in that? What was the change when we took out the bump outs and made adjustments that reduced the cost that first time? What was then included in that? Did the vaults get ignored at some point where they shouldn't have? Yeah, I will relay that and see if we can get that information for you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Anyone else? Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. Jim, can I chime in real quick?
Counselor, go ahead.
From the city council meeting, one of the delays was in getting the PGE final design that had a lot of the information about the oversized power that was feeding uptown, not just the local businesses. And if I'm remembering correctly, that they had mentioned that they didn't have that information that impacted the price on the power side. I don't know about the remainder of this stuff, but the size of the vaults and the amount of power running through there was a new piece of information that had changed the cost of it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, Counselor. All right, so I think we got that down. Anyone else have any questions on Main Street at all? That seems to be moving forward in less time, which is good to hear. Less impact to the businesses here on Main. All right, next on committee business, Northeast Main Street overlay update.
We also, I think we skipped over.
Oh,
the
go ahead.
auto crossing request.
Audible crossing.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
which I can just keep talking because I can give an update on that too.
Okay, thank you, Taylor.
And I'll be brief here. Back, I'm not sure exactly which month this was, but at a recent meeting with your committee, might have been the joint meeting with the city council, for the transportation system plan project. You guys, I know that, I think it was maybe Brandy, I'm not sure if anyone else had brought this up too, but you all brought up the issue of the crossing at the highway, you know, where Broadway intersects with the highway. It's really difficult for vision impaired people to know when it's time for them to cross. And so, yeah, someone was asking into like, how could we get like an audible crossing signal put in there for those people that would be helpful for. And so that actually, we were able to actually get that in the works a lot faster. Things don't usually happen very quickly with ODOT, but impressively, our ODOT grant manager for that project was able to figure out a path forward, and he connected us with the person at ODOT that is in charge of all of these audible crossing requests. Her name is Carrie Franny. And so we relayed that request to them, you know, described the issue. We had also heard about that specific issue from one of the community members that we interviewed for this project too. So we had 2 points of kind of public testimony about the problem. So we submitted that request to them, and Carrie let me know what the process is going to look like from here to getting it put in now that it's in their system. So here's what she said. In terms of process, I have now put in a request to an ODOT electrical engineer to look at the existing signal to ensure that the infrastructure has the capacity to add the audible feature. Once that evaluation is complete, ODOT then has to get approval from the state engineer to install the audible component. From there, they then create a funding request to order the audible signals. And then once that is approved, ODOT's maintenance department can place the order and install the audible signal when all of the components are delivered. It's already a lengthy process to evaluate and get approval, and it can be further lengthened if there are delays in the supply chain, which is something ODOT has seen during the pandemic and still is continuing today. In total, she estimates it will take between 3 to 6 months before the audible signal is installed if it's approved. She doesn't say that to be disheartening, but simply to be realistic about the process and timing. Yeah, I'll stop there. So that's the basic situation. The infrastructure that's there now was quite recently updated, so I would expect that everything is there that needs to be there in order for them to put that signal in. It's just going to take some time with the way that bureaucracy slowly kind of chugs along. So yeah, any questions about that?
Anyone have any questions about the crossing? No, thank you, Taylor.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Good information there. All right, well, Counselor McElroy already explained a little bit about Main Street construction, and so did Taylor. So we'll move on to Main Street overlay update, and I will shorten it down just to give everyone an idea on what's going on up there. The 2023 Main Street overlay project was awarded to Knife River Corporation Northwest for a grand total of $371,000. And let's see, just a little background. It was last paved in 2004, 19 years ago. The last several years, heavy construction vehicles utilizing Main Street have taken a toll on the road. Sections of Main Street have been repaired in the past few years. This project will repair and overlay Main Street from the bottom of the hill at Southeast Third to Northeast Sixth by Estacada Middle School. Pedestrian crossings will be restriped, and Public Works is purchasing flashing pedestrian crossing signs to be installed after the project is complete. 2 thumbs up on that. They will be placed at Northeast Second and Northeast Fifth. So it says anticipated timeline, construction will take place as quickly as possible. School district operation manager will be included in pre-construction meetings, and school will begin August 28th. So anyone have any questions on that other than way to go? Oh, and I think there was a grant also that provided some money for the project, which is great moving forward. All right. Okay, I think the next is the transportation system plan. Oh, go ahead, John.
2 questions on that, on the
Yeah.
TSP.
Yeah.
If you remember the TSP plan, there's over 100 projects. I don't remember the exact number. But the first question I have is that list would label who was going to be responsible for the cost of that particular item. And so there were a whole bunch of, and I don't remember the number, that were developer paid parts of the transportation system plan. And I'm just wondering if any of those have been done. You know, with all the rapid construction going on there, it's you get the feeling that once the project is done, then anything, they move on to the next one. And I just wonder if any of those projects that they were responsible for are completed. That's question 1. Question 2, and again, this is one of the projects in the transportation safety plan, but 4th Street Hill right there, from Ginseng to Oakview or something like that, I saw some surveys out there, and there's paint all over the road. And I just wonder if that's one of the projects that they were working on, or if that's something different.
Yeah, so I can chime in about those. I don't know what they were doing out on the street. It would have been, if there is private development happening over there right now, I forget exactly where you said that was. It might be this.
In between Southeast Oakview and Ginseng on
Yeah.
4th.
Yep, there's we had a pre-application meeting for a potential development. They haven't come in for an actual application yet.
Okay.
But, probably what they were doing was maybe like a locate, where they identify where the utilities are so that the applicant can understand what's going to be required if they do want to develop their property and where they would hook up to utilities and stuff. I would expect that's what that was, but I'm not positive. So
The truck said survey, but maybe they do
Oh.
that duty as well.
yeah, they might have been, it might have just been their surveyor actually, anytime someone comes in wanting to divide their property or even just adjust a property line, or different types of development require a survey to be done in order for them to be allowed to do whatever it is they're doing. So could have been that too.
I know they were on all the manhole covers of the drain, so it was obvious that they were looking for the utilities, and it was good getting stuff planned out there. All
Yeah.
right.
So, the transportation system plan, our current plan, most parts of it are from back in 2007. So if you look through those projects, a lot of those projects have already been built, mostly by, well, I don't know mostly, but a lot of them by developers, a lot of them by the city. Just depends on how development ends up happening. With this update that we're doing currently to the TSP, there's, as you mentioned, there's a super long list of projects that are identified in the TSP. And when I say identified, that does not mean that the city is committing to doing the project necessarily. It just means that the city basically has this long wish list of projects or improvements that we agree we want things to get built out that way, or we want that improvement to get done. And yes, some of those improvements, depending on what it is, some of those improvements make the most sense and are legally, we have the legal right to require the developer to put in that improvement whenever they go in and develop their property. They'll, if someone wants to do a subdivision and their property butts up against Eagle Creek Road, well, they have to look at, what does our TSP say Eagle Creek Road is supposed to look like there? And then that developer has to build their side of the street according to the TSP specifications. So there might be a few projects in that draft list that we have floating around right now that have already been built. And I think the most recent draft that you all would have seen was back at the time of probably that joint meeting with the council, sometime around then. And since then, we have, done kind of a deeper review, and we have identified, I think that project actually is getting built now, or was built last year. So there were a couple that will be taken out of that list, or just changed a little bit. And that's part of what I wanted to talk about with this agenda item. I'm not asking for specific feedback at this time about during this meeting about the content of the TSP, just because it is so much content. If you do have a couple of comments, like I'd love to make sure to receive those comments that you just mentioned, or questions. But there's so much information in that document that I assumed it would be, there's already kind of a lot on the agenda. I assumed you all wouldn't quite be ready to discuss it. And we don't have the updated draft in front of you yet. So what I wanted to let you know with this agenda item is that we will soon have the updated, well, it's a draft of the full TSP document. Pardon me, I'm going to get rid of this cat real quick. She's very cute, but she's very vocal. Yeah, we are about to have a draft of the full TSP document ready to distribute for you all to review and provide comments and ask questions about. That should be ready within the next couple of weeks to send out. So what I was going to suggest is, if you want, we can send that out to you as soon as we receive it. And then you all can kind of individually read through it. It won't be a ton of brand new information because you've already met with us and the city council about the bulk of the content. But it will be kind of just going in and, perusing the things you've already sort of looked at, but seeing how it all comes together in the main document that would be adopted by the city council. So what I was going to pose, and this is up to you all, but if you want, you could add your own kind of internal committee discussion on that to your next meeting agenda. I don't know if you've got other things in mind for that meeting yet. However, I will not be able to attend that meeting. I think it's on September 26th. And so what it would be is, you all kind of get together and discuss amongst yourselves. Here's the, we read through the document. I could identify the what I think are the most important sections of the document to read through, like really what ends up impacting the way that development occurs, is basically just one or maybe two chapters of the document, and the other chapters are kind of like background information and supporting information. But the legally binding pieces, those are the pieces that I really want to make sure we get broad community and committee input on, because that's what ends up impacting and guiding and regulating the way that development happens. So if that sounds good to you, we can put that discussion on your next meeting agenda. You all would talk amongst yourselves. Here's the concerns that I have. Here's the questions that I have. And staff could help you turn that into a kind of master list of the TPS committee's concerns and questions that then we would bring to the project consultants. I'm going to pause there. There's two other things that I want to invite you to, but I'll pause there and kind of want to hear your thoughts about that.
I feel like it's just going to be more streamlined and easier if you're part of that meeting. I don't know why we would need to do that next month when, Taylor, you're not going to be there to answer questions, when maybe the following month you could be, and we can just simply make this meeting go really quick and ask the questions. You give us an answer and we realize it's not even a topic we need to discuss because you're right there to give us the answer. That's just the way I feel. I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but
Yeah, my question, I mean, I know there's a timeline for meetings and community events and that sort of stuff. I'm fine with that. My only question was, and you addressed it in that some of this stuff is done already. I would like to instead of dropping them off the list, I would like to see the list that has them checked off, meaning they are complete or something like that, so that we've got all the data, because that would answer the other question too, of the projects that are the responsibility of a developer. If they're done, it's going to be on that list also. And I'm fine with that. And I'm fine with whatever timeline that they've set up for that committee already. I don't see the need for anything special because we've hashed through all the concerns that
Right.
we've had already. And now it's just waiting for stuff to happen.
What do you think, Carrie?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we can wait, Taylor, for October or whenever you get that packaged up sometime in September, or that's fine. We could meet in October. Discuss.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Gary.
Taylor, is anything pending before that time happening?
You
And
mean
engaged?
development projects?
Yeah, and is there anything kicked in gear as far as if we wait? Is there something that's going on that's going to be initiated prior to we talking and having review on the package?
Missing a timeline or something
We've
like that.
had a couple of pre-application meetings for development that have not yet come in with their actual land use application, but we do anticipate them coming in with their application. And so it's possible that, yeah, if a small, let's say a potential small subdivision comes in and they would be building out one of those streets to a certain cross-section requirement that might be different if the council adopts this TSP as it is. And so the adoption date right now, this is the next part that I was going to get to. Right now, the timeline that we're looking at is first adoption hearing with the Planning Commission is aiming for a target date of November 15th. And then the following, usually it goes to the Planning Commission for one adoption hearing. If they want to continue that, they could. The earliest that it would go to the City Council following that first Planning Commission hearing would be December 11th. And then if the council wanted 2 meetings for this topic too, then that second one would be January 8th. So let's say the TSP gets adopted January 8th. If we have a land use application that gets submitted before that, then we have to apply the standards that are current at the time of their application submittal. So all that to say, the earlier we adopt the TSP, obviously the sooner those changes go into effect, and we do have some anticipated development applications coming in. But that's always going to be, I mean, development's going to keep happening. So I wouldn't want that to make you feel necessarily like rushed to, or make the council feel rushed to adopt something that they're not comfortable adopting. It does get more expensive if we go longer than the project timeline, because we're only scoped, you know, we only were awarded a grant for so much money. And so if we need to keep the consultants on for longer than our anticipated time, then it does start to get expensive for that reason too.
There is one other question I have, if it pertaining to what you're saying on development. I guess how is it that what I guess this would be, once a subdivision is approved for development, what is this? Is there a standard time for breaking ground? I mean, is it 1 year, 2 years? How does that roll out?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on how quickly the developer is able to kind of get their ducks in a row. And it also, the standard kind of expiration date for any subdivision is 4 years from approval. So if a developer doesn't come in with, doesn't manage to get their site work done in time to meet that 4-year deadline, then their approval expires. And if they still want to do the subdivision, they would have to apply for an extension or just apply for a brand new land use application. Most developers, in my 4-year experience here in Estacada, most developers end up breaking ground on their site work within a year of their land use approval. And then a lot of them, they have to do the site work first. They have to put in the public improvements that we require of them. And then once they've done that, then they can request platting, which is recording the new lot lines. So the norm, in my experience, is we usually receive the plat within like a year, between a year and 3 years is kind of the norm. It's almost never quicker than a year because site work takes a lot of time.
So one other question, how does this affect the sewer reclamation plan? How can we keep doing this when we are at a capacity that's pretty high?
Yeah.
How does that, I mean, if a developer ideally waits for the new facility or the additions or to take in the load, wouldn't that, I mean, that's great because then the capacity is not overflown, or it would handle the additional subdivisions. So what happens when, how are we doing this now? How are we doing additional sewage and waste with the system we're doing now? How's that working?
So the capacity is consistently monitored by the city engineer. And basically, as long as we still have sufficient capacity at the time of a land use application, they are permitted to develop according to the development standards. If we get to a point where we have maxed out and we don't have any more capacity, we are allowed to deny or halt development in what's called a moratorium. The state is really protective of, they're really strict about when cities are allowed to declare a moratorium. So we would have to be absolutely at capacity, right? Out of capacity in order to say we're not permitting any new development. We don't have the capacity, and we need to demonstrate that to the state. So we just haven't reached that point yet, But that will be an option if for some reason, I mean, the council is moving forward. They've selected a site for the new wastewater treatment plant. If for some reason that doesn't come online fast enough to meet the development, then yeah, we'll have to look at the possibility of declaring a moratorium. But we just aren't at that point yet. But that's
So the builders could actually invest, folks that are, the timeline could be to their advantage actually if they have that grace period of 4 years, because then by then things would be functioning in a larger capacity. Isn't that kind of the plan? Within 4 years or less?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it just depends on every developer's needs are different and how they are financing things.
Right, yeah. So they wouldn't be out if, because we're in gear with the getting the new system online. So I just think it'd be good if, you know, if something happens, they still have the ability to do their projects. That's all.
Right. Yeah, and I think if we did declare a moratorium in a way that forced them to force them not to meet that 4-year deadline, I think that's a great, I think it would be only fair of us to allow them an extension in that case, right? But that's up to the council.
I think so. Thank you.
Yeah, Counselor.
Just to clarify, Carrie, the capacity is determined at the time when they submit. So, and anything that's approved, it's my understanding, the subdivisions that are approved and the capacity they're going to add, the load that they're going to add to the system is calculated into the total capacity. So it's not like it would be the new subdivisions that we're applying that's going to evaluate the extra load at that time. So any of the subdivisions that are approved, those are calculated in to the load for the total capacity of the system. So whether that 4-year window isn't really impacted because their load's already considered in the system. It's just the new developments that are applying the moratorium would affect. The moratorium wouldn't affect people that are already approved subdivisions, is my understanding. Is that correct, Taylor?
Yeah, that's right. The city engineer puts out these occasional statements of sewer capacity, and that calculation is done assuming that all of these approved subdivisions that they've been approved but they haven't yet been built out or brought online, they haven't yet hooked up to the sewer system. His calculation of capacity assumes that they are hooked up to the system, right? So they're being overly conservative, assuming that all of these homes are going to come online when it's likely that some of them won't. Probably a lot of them will, but yeah.
So Taylor, there's about 2,000 homes that are included in that calculation for the load on the system right now. Is that between I think it's 13 or 14 residential subdivisions with pretty close to 2,000 homes.
That sounds right.
And so they're probably already accounting for, I don't know the total number of homes that are on the system right now, but if it's close to the population or 4,000 homes, for instance, there's already a third of the load that's calculated into our capacity is homes that aren't even built yet.
Okay, so okay, I get you. So what you're saying is up to 4,000 is still not at full capacity. Is that right? I mean, as far as projected homes. Is that correct?
The 2,000 homes that are approximately 2,000 homes that are already approved
Yes.
are in the calculations already, and it's under it. We still have capacity at that point, so those aren't going to be impacted by a moratorium because they're already part of the math. They're cooked into the sauce already. So it would take. It's only new subdivision applications where they're looking at the extra load on the system, and I believe we still have a good bit of room before that could get shut down for a moratorium.
I see. Thank you, Counselor.
Yep.
I had a follow-up.
Go ahead, John.
I have a follow-up on that, the question regarding the 4th Street Hill, which is basically starts right at the Ace Hardware backyard, heading up the hill, in between Ginseng and what's called Oakview.
Oakview, right.
Right where all the survey spray paint is on the road, the roadway there is 22 feet wide. And I remember in the TSP plans for streets of that size, I think it was less than half of what the TSP required for streets of that type. I can't remember how it was qualified, like a small, it wasn't a feet or anything like that.
It
but
was 50 to 60 feet, I think. in
something
the
like that,
TSP.
yeah. And so my question is, based on your comments about any subdivisions that are approved before the TSP plan is finalized, what's the current standard? There's no sidewalks and there's 22 feet of asphalt right there. What happens there?
If you'll bear with me for a moment, I can pull up the city engineer's comments from that pre-app meeting. I just pulled up the map. That is there's a property on the north side of 4th Avenue, a large property that's considering low density subdivision. And I believe the city engineer in the pre-app, we brought up the fact that the TSP is likely going to include a wider cross-section requirement than what is currently there. And so, that would change the requirements if they come in after the TSP is adopted versus before. And the city engineer noted that just due to the way that the surrounding streets are built and also how that hill works, he would recommend just building the street cross-section to match what's currently on both sides of that. If you do want to see those pre-app notes, I can send those out, but that's the basic. I don't know I don't have the exact, numbers in mind, but basically he was recommending building it to the cross-section that you see, where Oakview meets 4th Avenue and there's sidewalks on both sides.
Right.
It's, having this subdivision build their half of the street to match that. So curb tight sidewalk, and then half street of.
Sure. No, that answers that. Thank you.
Yeah. And that'll be sort of ultimately a question for the council too, is does it really make sense for that cross-section when we're talking about the TSP update? Do we really want to widen that part of the street so much? Does it make sense due to how the street's currently, parts of the street that are currently built out, the way that the hill works? The city engineer is questioning that. So that's a question that we will have about the TSP. So so the next thing that I just wanted to kind of get it on your radar that this draft of the TSP document will be available soon. I'll send it out to you all as soon as we receive it. The next stakeholder group meeting. So the stakeholder group is the project advisory committee for the TSP update project. It's made up of representatives of a bunch of the city's boards. We have a couple city councilors, planning commissioners, TPS committee members. I know that Brandy was on the stakeholder group. I can't remember if you guys had a second person on that group or not, but I wanted to invite up to 3 of you so that there's not a quorum. Up to 3 of you could attend this next stakeholder group meeting for the project, which will be facilitated by the project consultants. And so they are really the best people to answer all of the technical questions. If I were to attend another meeting with you all, one of your regular meetings, to have you ask questions about the TSP, at least half of those questions, I'm going to have to defer back to our consultants because I'm not a traffic or transportation engineer, right? So it would be great if there's 3 of you that want to attend that stakeholder group meeting, that would be awesome. So that meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 17th from 3 to 5 p.m. And if you want to discuss it right now and decide which 3 of you want to go, we can do that, or you can think about it and, you know, talk amongst yourselves and let us know. What do y'all think?
Well, I think we have, we can ask Heath when he gets back, and we still have time. What, September 26th, right?
October 17th.
No, but I mean, our next meeting for September 26th, if anyone else wants to volunteer for that. And that's going to be here on October 17th, Taylor?
Yep.
In town that week. So
What?
I'm pretty sure I won't be in town.
You won't be in town? Okay. Yeah, we're gonna look too. All right. How about you, Mitch? Are you available? I know you'll do it, John. Just wanted you to have backup. Come
It's
on.
an interest.
All right. I think I have anything. I think I can be there with John. All right. And then we can ask Keith if he wants to be there. So we get 2 out of 3 so far, Taylor.
Okay, so who do we have? Sorry, I wasn't writing. this.
John and myself, and I'll ask Heath Sedgberg also.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, it would be great to have all 3 of you. Okay, so that is October 17th. You'll find out on, I guess on September 26th, you'll confirm. Or if you confirm before that, you can just email us. That works.
Okay.
Okay. And then the next meeting about the TSP, if you missed the stakeholder group and want to attend something that is facilitated by the project consultants, that next meeting will be the City Council joint workshop with the Planning Commission on October 23rd. So that is their second council meeting in October.
You said the 23rd?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And normally those meetings, it's normally the type of thing where whichever groups are in the workshop are, they're the ones talking, and there's not public involvement in those discussions. If there's a, if like some of you can't make the stakeholder group meeting, but you really want to be able to interact and ask those questions with the consultants, I think it would be fine for us to ask if we could have a couple TPS committee representatives also participate in that joint workshop. So just let me know if that's something that you want to ask for.
And that's just an hour ahead of the meeting, right? At 6 p.m.
Yeah, I expect that to be a 6
Okay.
to 7 p.m. deal.
Thank you. Nice. All right. Do you have anything else, Taylor, on the TSP?
I don't. But I'm also looking at, so your next meeting after September 26th is October 24th. And I also would not be able to attend that meeting. So if there was, yeah, I guess I would encourage you guys to either have some internal discussion at your next meeting, and then try to make sure that as many of you as possible can get to the stakeholder group meeting and or that council briefing.
Okay.
I think that'd be the best route to getting everyone's input, taken and getting everyone's questions answered.
Okay. We can do that.
Okay.
Right.
That's all I have. And we are always available too by email, or if you want to schedule a time to meet with myself or the other planning staff working on this project. We're happy to do that, get you on the calendar during one of our normal in-office days. So just let us know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
All
all.
right. So we all know the next meeting is September 26th. Does anyone else have any final comments at the end here? Anyone? Staff? Are you good? All right. Well, I want to say thank you, Evelyn. Good meeting. Welcome.
Nice meeting you all as well.
And thank you for doing all this. We appreciate it. I know it was a lot.
Yeah.
These are pretty heavy. But if anyone doesn't have anything else, I'll adjourn the meeting. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, council, do you have anything else? Sorry.
No, sir. Just thanks, everybody. You guys are starting to compete with the city council for the length of these. I like
Come
it.
on. You guys are the best, Mike.
Appreciate you guys.
All right. Have a good night.
Thanks, Mark.
Night.